University is bracing for disruptive protests to resume as students arrive on campus this week, even as some hold out hope that the new administration will be able to broker peace. The days before the start of classes have been marked by restricted campus access, talk of giving campus security officers more clout, and last-minute discussions about rules. Senator J.D. Vance, former President Donald Trump's running mate, evaded multiple questions over the weekend about whether Trump's proposed zero tolerance policy on immigration would lead to family separation. First, Vance told NBC News Meet the Press that before he imposed mass deportations, Trump would need to stop the bleeding. But when pressed on whether this policy would separate families, Vance continued to evade the questions. And a second Memphis police officer he changed his plea to guilty on Friday in connection to alleged civil rights violations that ended in the beating death of Tyree Nichols. A change of plea for former officer Emmett Martin was entered in the courtroom of U.S. District Court Judge Mark Norris in Memphis, with prosecutors saying they'll ask that Emmett Martin receive a 40-year prison sentence. And on Friday, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dropped out of the race for president and endorsed Donald Trump, the GOP presidential nominee. Later that night, he joined Trump at a campaign rally in Glendale, Arizona. And during his speech, Kennedy mentioned the issues that he and Trump agree on, such as having safe food and ending the chronic disease epidemic, ending the Russian-Ukraine war, free speech, and rebuilding the middle class. Now, Kennedy's family members, including his sisters, nephews, nieces, and some of his best friends, have denounced him and have said that he is embarrassing not only the living members of the Kennedy family, but that he is disparaging the legacy of his father and his late uncle, John Kennedy, who was the former president of the United States. And Donald Trump's outburst comes as VP Harris leads him by 3.6 percentage points in an average of national polls. One particularly striking new poll result found that VP Harris is leading Trump by as much as 7 points nationally. This poll has him up. It's by Fairleigh Dickinson University. They have Donald Trump down by 43% and Kamala Harris up by 50%. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. And I am fresh off of my 4-day trip to Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. I'm back home in Los Angeles at our home station, the KBLA, which is in Los Angeles, California. And I'm going to be talking a lot for the rest of the week about what happened at that convention, talking to folks who were there, folks who also participated in one way or the other. But we're going to make sure that you get all the behind the scenes and on the ground tea, that is, about the Democratic National Convention. I want to thank my producer, Robert, who helped me throughout the convention. We tape shows every day during the convention, challenging in some instances, but we got it done. We were talking to newsmakers and party leaders and elected officials and folks who had their fingers on the pulse of what was happening in that uber successful convention. We're already learning that the ratings, the national ratings for the convention, not only Kamala Harris's speech outperforming Donald Trump, but the entire 4 days of the national convention outperforming the RNC and by a big margin. Going to be talking about the DNC, I should say, in this hour, as well as the rest of the news with Dr. Hassan Jeffries. He's not only the professor of history at Ohio State University, he happens to be the brother of Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader who was on that stage and gave a very rousing speech talking not only about supporting Kamala Harris, but also supporting down ballot races so that the Democrats can flip the U.S. House of Representatives, maintain their lead in the Senate. And if that happens, Hakeem Jeffries is poised to become the first African-American ever to be the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. So we're talking a lot to Dr. Jeffries in this hour about what the family thought of his brother's speech and his overall impressions of the convention and where we go from here. Also, in hour two, we're going to go deep dig behind those headlines, bring you the stories that people are talking about. And one of the most interesting stories for me coming out of the convention, obviously, other than the history making nomination of Kamala Harris and her acceptance, was also the first time ever 250 or so content creators were given credentials to be a part of the convention. They had full access. They were on the floor of the convention. They had their own content creators lounge. We're going to talk to one of those content creators. His name is Ryan Alexander Holmes. Talk to him about what his experience was like, who were some of the folks he was able to interview. And then Dr. Andre Brock is going to join us in hour two and talk to us about how significant it was for the DNC to invite these 250 content creators and how it might be a game changer in terms of this election. So make sure you stick around for hour two. But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking in real time. There were so many amazing speeches given on the floor of the convention. But of course, there are a couple that everyone have been talking about. And one of them is the speech by Michelle Obama. A lot of conversations about what she wore, what her fashion symbolized, conversations about her braids, her big long braid that she wore on the stage, but also something that was very striking about Michelle Obama's speech. I was there in 2016 when Michelle gave that speech to the convention when Hillary Clinton was the nominee. That's when she told us, when they go low, we go high. And for last 8 years or so, that's been the mantra of many Democrats, is not to get in the mud, not to, allow the MAGA crowd to bring us into their world. Some would say to stoop to their level. Well, we saw a different Michelle on that stage on Tuesday night at the Democratic National Convention. She told us that it was the first time she had been back to Chicago since she had to memorialize her mom, Mrs. Marion Robinson, who had passed away. She said it was so difficult for her. She was still grieving the loss of her mother, as would be expected, that she didn't even know if she would be able to give that speech on that stage. Well, she did. And you would not have even known that she was grieving because her speech was so incredibly powerful. And one of the things Michelle did in that speech was, I think she gave us freedom. She gave us freedom to take the gloves off. She said, okay, we tried that when they go low, we go high. And she says, these people have proven themselves incapable of not stooping into the mud, not sinking into the mud, not using baseless insults and lies to malign Democrats and to basically tell outright lies. She said that it was clear that Donald Trump and the MAGA crowd happened to have a problem with her and her husband, two incredibly successful, well-educated people who just happened to be Black. She said that bothered them. And we know that it bothers them. We know because we've watched them have complete outbursts, temper tantrums over Michelle and Barack. And she reminded us that somebody better tell Donald Trump that that job he's seeking might be one of those Black jobs. And the whole tone of the convention, I think maybe people had Michelle's speech on their minds before they even took to the stage. But clearly there was a tone at the convention that Democrats, we're going to keep it classy. We're going to keep it sophisticated. But we were not going to allow Republicans to continue to malign and to lie and to attack us as Democrats without fighting back. And one example of that happened because on the Wednesday night, we saw Tim Walz, the governor from the great state of Minnesota, who was handpicked by Kamala Harris to be her running mate. Tim Walz gave an electrifying speech. He introduced himself to the American people. He introduced his wife, Gwen. He introduced his daughter and his son, Gus. And Gus is a kid with special needs. He has a nonverbal learning disorder. He's the son of two parents, public school teachers who understand what it's like to have a kid that has special needs. As you all know, I'm an autism advocate. I'm a mom of a special needs kid. I'm a founder of a nonprofit that works to help special needs children and their families. So when Ann Coulter, this right-wing bomb thrower, that's what I'll call her, took aim at Tim Walz's 17-year-old son, Gus, who is described in the media as neurodiverse. And that's just a big word for saying this kid has special needs. I mean, we use the word neurodiverse, we use the term neurodivergent, but basically it means he learns differently. He has this nonverbal learning disorder. He cried while his father, Tim, spoke at the DNC. He stood up. He began pointing at his father as he spoke. He was so incredibly proud. He shouted, "That's my dad." Now, that was a huge statement from a kid who has a nonverbal learning disability to stand up and to shout, "That's my dad," and to do it with the kind of passion and power that he did it with. He was crying and he was just expressing his emotions. Many people in that convention hall of 22,000 people cried throughout that convention. And those words that should have been embraced, that should have been praised by pretty much anybody that has half a brain, well, they weren't. They were attacked. Ann Coulter and others in the MAGA crowd latched on to that moment, that Gus moment where he's connecting with his dad. And she made this horrible post on Twitter, X now, formerly Twitter. And she put a picture of Gus and said, "Talk about weird." Yes, people, she did this. She called this 17-year-old kid and made that statement, "Talk about weird," essentially saying that Gus was weird because he has special needs. He's weird because he stood up and shouted, "That's my dad." He's weird because he cried, because he was passionate, because he was powerful. The backlash, the Michelle Obama backlash, the permission to clap back. The internet was on fire with folks literally putting this woman and others in their place. I issued a statement, autism advocates, neurodivergent parents, the neurodivergent community, people around this country stood up for Gus and said, "This woman, these people are despicable human beings." Who would make fun of a 17-year-old kid with special needs? Nobody's made fun of Barron. Barron is 18. He's grown. But we don't get down like that. We don't need to do that because Gus isn't on the ticket. He isn't running for anything. Barron isn't on the ticket. He isn't running for anything. These are children who happen to be born into families where their dads and sometimes their moms are in public office. It was a low blow below the belt, and it was felt around this country, and people responded in the way that they should. They put this woman in her place, and guess what? She took that post down. You can't find it now. She deleted it. And thank you, Michelle, for giving us permission to take the gloves off, because some people deserve to be put in their place, and Ann Coulter and anyone else that dare to make fun of Gus Walls or any child with a special needs or any adult with a special needs needs to be put in their place. And Democrats, bravo to you. Independents, bravo to you. Republicans that have some sense, bravo to you. Anybody that spoke up, stood up, and said that Ann Coulter and MAGA were out of place and needed to be checked and did that, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
To Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
Rinse it out.
Every now and then I get a little bit tired of the stinks that just will never come out.
Oh, Downy in the rinse straight.
Every now and then I rinse it out. One wash and it delivers. One wash, it smells so clean. Downy Rinse and Refresh, it's a dream.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes 100% of odor in just one wash. Guaranteed.
Whoa, it's you, the Capital One Bank guy.
That's what they call me.
Mind if I get a selfie?
Yeah, sure thing. Say no fees or minimums on your Capital One checking account.
Wow, that's a keeper. So, where are you heading?
I'm off to spread the good news that Capital One helps people keep more money in their wallet with no overdraft fees.
Oh, you're the best Capital One Bank guy.
Hey, mind if I get a selfie?
Sure.
Say, Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do
Let's play something, Grandma.
became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Febreze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust new Febreze car vent clips, now with 3 times greater scent control, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with new Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing, which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
We are back, and Professor Hassan Jeffries is joining me in this hour. He is a professor of history at Ohio State University, and he happens to be the brother of Hakeem Jeffries, who is a minority leader in the U.S. House of Representatives. It was on that stage during the DNC. Welcome back, Professor Jeffries. Thank you for joining us today.
It's great to be with you again.
Were you at the DNC? I didn't see you, but there were 21,000 people, so there's a reason that I wouldn't have seen you.
There were a lot of people in that building. I snuck in on Wednesday, so I caught my brother and the full and Governor Walz and Friday as well. And I also caught your last segment, your opening segment about his son Gus, and I can tell you it was a powerful moment. Where I was sitting, I could see Gus in real time, sort of standing up and pointing. I mean, it was captured on the big screen, and it was. I mean, everyone was anyone who has children, anyone who has had a parent, an adult they love, and you see the expression of pride and not knowing, that he had sort of learned differently. I mean, that only adds to the impact of the moment when you learn about it. But even not knowing that idea of just the pride, the joy, the love that you could share, it's amazing, but not surprising that the party of so-called family values is so quick to turn on family members in these most basic and simplest expressions of love.
It's hard to, you hate to say people are jealous. Like, I don't like to use that word a lot, but it just seems like we had so much fun at that convention. I was an at-large delegate for the state of California. It was the first time ever California was, having someone from California, get the nomination to the ticket since Ronald Reagan on the Republican side. So when you are the home state of the nominee, you get some privileges, you get some perks, and one of those is to be on the floor, center of the stage, front row. And so I was often row 2, row 3, row 1 at that convention, and to see people were having fun. We were just having a good time. And, it comes from the top, because our leader at the top of the ticket sees life with the glass half full and is able to laugh and express joy and happiness, even when things aren't 100% the way that we would want them to be. And then her energy, her joy just, it trickles down. And so you had a convention full of happy people, and I just think that was too much for the Republican Party. No, they were just too damn happy. I'm sorry.
Too happy, and at the same time serious about the problems that we're facing as a nation. And so it wasn't silly season, right? I mean, it was the seriousness of purpose but that does not displace the joy that can be had, the notion of joyful warriors. I mean, when we think about, you know this, I study African American history, you study the Black freedom struggle. Black folk have been serious about the challenges and issues that we have faced throughout the entirety of our journey here in America. But we've always had this sense of spirituality, as well as this sense of joy. In other words, you can still cling to the joy, even in the worst of circumstances, because that carries you through. And this particular ticket, it's not just Kamala Harris, it's also Governor Walz. They're exuding that. They're leaning into that, saying, look, this is going to carry us through. We got work to do. We got serious work to do. But you know what? We can carry on and deal with that seriousness of purpose, but with a smile on our face. That's powerful.
Yeah, it's a sense of hope, Professor Jeffries, because it's easy to work towards something if you know at the end of your labor, there's a reward, right? Yeah. I do this hard work and my kids can go to college because maybe college is free. I do this hard work because at the end, maybe my kids who've already gone to college gets their college, debt dispense with. I do this hard work because maybe my kids can now buy a house because they can get help with the down payment. There is something hopeful to look forward to, whereas the Republicans, Donald Trump keeps telling his party and America that when you cross the street in Michigan, you are likely to get mugged. You are going to be raped. You are going to be confronted with violence. I'm just wondering, again, you study and you teach African-American history. What would inspire you to motivate you to go to work if what the outcome is if you get raped and robbed and possibly even murdered in his vision of our country?
So it's what's so captivating about this particular political moment is that it's kind of unusual. This idea, it's not unusual that you have a political party or a political personality, and it's really sort of Trump's personality now that's driving the Republican Party, to lean into fear and hate, right? And those are probably two of the most powerful political organizing ideas and tools that you can use, fear and hate. And usually the opposition to the party that's drawing on fear and hate will say, well, just don't be afraid. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. But here we have a situation where they're not just saying, that's not the game plan. They're like, you know what? We're not even going to take that serious. There are issues, but y'all are just being weird with all these other issues and how you're framing the problems that people are facing. Ain't nobody, people are just walking out and being mugged and killed. You're describing a world that doesn't happen. Why are you doing that? In fact, we're going to look, as you said, at the glass half full, as opposed to looking at the glass having no water in it. It's like, what are you doing? We see the water. What are you talking about? And so they don't know what to do. And that's why I think they're coming back with these very odd sort of assaults, like, aha, look, they're being normal, right? It's like that's your response. They don't know what to do because the power this leaning into joy, and it sounds so simple. Dr. King talked about it in terms of love. We're talking about it in terms of joy, but Dr. King talked about it in terms of love, like the power of love, Reverend James Lawson, the power of love to see the humanity of other people and to believe that you can truly believe that you can live in a better world. There's no antidote to that. And that's what they're leaning in. And we're seeing the power of it in real time.
Yeah, that's such an important point. And tying it back to those pioneering civil rights leader, Dr. King, Dr. Lawson, who we just lost not too long ago. But yes, they talked about this world and it's the possibility that we could care for each other, right? That as human beings, I could really care about you and I could see the world such that my life can improve and it doesn't have to do so at the expense of you or your life, that we both can go up together, that we can lift as we climb. That is really a concept that's been around forever. Not embraced by many in more recent times, but it is definitely having a comeback. And Michelle told us on Tuesday night, Michelle Obama, that hope is back, that is back in the room, is back on the agenda, is back on the ballot. And, hearkening back to 2008, and when we come forward, I want to talk about the similarities in the campaigns that you see today and what we saw in the 2007, 2008, when Barack Obama talked about hope and people were really excited about his candidacy. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
Right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A Franklin County, Ohio judge is denying the request of a former Columbus police officer who asked that a lawsuit filed by the family of Donovan Lewis be dropped. Lewis is the 20-year-old man who was unarmed when he was shot to death by now retired CPD officer Ricky Anderson during the execution of an arrest warrant in August of 2022. The lawsuit claims Columbus police have systematically used excessive force and overly aggressive tactics, particularly in predominantly Black neighborhoods. Officer Anderson has been indicted on murder and reckless homicide counts in connection with Lewis's death. The trial is expected to take place next year. Today marks a somber anniversary in Jacksonville, Florida. It was 1 year ago that 3 Black people were killed in a racially motivated shooting at a Dollar General store. The shooter committed suicide. A memorial was held over the weekend where Mayor Donna Deegan spoke and said she felt a personal responsibility that this horrific act of violence happened under her watch. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Checking your roadways heading to downtown LA. First of all, in downtown on the 110 northbound at 5th Street/6th Street. A car broke down in the left-hand lane. So the 110 northbound, it's continuous delays from Sepulveda Boulevard near Carson all the way up to the 5 freeway near Dodger Stadium. Coming away from downtown, the 110 southbound is slow from the 5 down to Manchester, and up ahead you're slow again from Rosecrans down to 223rd Street.
Bank of America has powerful digital solutions for local and global businesses, so you can make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America N.A. Copyright 2024.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Clippers coach Ty Lue is one of the primary candidates to take over the head coaching job for the U.S. Olympic men's basketball team. Golden State coach Steve Kerr is expected to step down from the position. When Kerr was named head coach for Team USA in 2021, he indicated he would not stay on after the Paris Olympics. Kerr led Team USA to the gold medal 3 weeks ago. Lue was one of Kerr's assistants. All 32 NFL teams have finished their 3-game preseason schedules, which means there will be no NFL games over the Labor Day weekend. It's a schedule issue the TV networks are not happy about. The NFL's 17-game regular season schedule begins September 5th. To ensure the league does not have another open weekend, be prepared for an 18-game schedule next year with just 2 preseason games. The 18-game proposal will be a topic at labor talks between the owners and players union in the offseason. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Pick up the drum.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chucky. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
Hey LA, today I'm here to talk to you about Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit in LA that focuses on renewable energy. We serve communities who have been left out of the renewable energy sector. We offer paid job training, and in 13 weeks, you can become a solar installer. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry, and once you're hired in the industry, you stop at a high, medium income. That could be $20 an hour or more. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry. Call today so you don't be left out at 323-861-0105 or gridalternatives.org, gridalternatives.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Single Moms Planet is a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting under-resourced single mom business owners and working mothers nationwide. Single Moms Planet offers comprehensive programs of financial literacy, business development, mentorship, and entrepreneurial training. They provide education, accountability, and hope. Single Moms Planet was founded by model, TV personality, and producer Nefertari Plessy. Nefertari felt firsthand the challenges that face single moms as she was raised by a working single mother. She learned that the most disadvantaged group in the United States are single mom families. According to the U.S. Census, 30% live under the poverty line. So she decided to do something about it, along with co-founder Cole Patterson. Their goal is to end the poverty cycle in single mother households through education, opportunity, and networking, providing family and child enrichment programs for under-resourced single-parent families. Single Moms Planet serves over 10,000 single moms and their children each year. Studies show that business development and financial literacy provide a positive environment for children and families, exposing them to new possibilities and opportunities. To attend one of their fun events, make a donation, or get more information, or if you need help as a single mom, please visit singlemomsplanet.org. That's singlemomsplanet.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and Dr. Hassan Jeffries is joining me in this hour. And in hour two, we're talking about those 250 plus content creators who were invited for the first time ever at any Democratic national convention. I don't think they've ever been invited to a Republican national convention either. Talk to them about what that experience was like. And Dr. Brock, our resident social media expert, will be joining us in this hour to tell us what the impact might be of having 250 content creators. So these folks aren't affiliated with ABC, NBC, CNN, or any of the big cable or broadcast network stations. They are their own content creators. They go around, they take interviews, they upload the content, the videos from their interviews onto their own websites, their own YouTube pages, their own social media sites. And in many cases, these videos go viral. They get hundreds of thousands of views, if in some cases, millions of views. And the Harris Walls team decided it was important to have this group in the house. We're going to talk to Ryan Alexander Holmes. He's an actor as well as content creator who was on the floor at the DNC for the entire 4 days. He's also joining a multiracial call tomorrow. So he's been real active in this campaign. So I want to talk to Ryan to get his experience being at the DNC. All right, Dr. Jeffries, you showed up. You showed up on the day that your brother, our minority leader in the U.S. House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries, was speaking. So I was sitting, as I said, I was at-large delegate on the floor. I was that night in particular, sitting with the congressional delegation. So all of the Congress people from the state of California. I'm not one, but I had good seats throughout this entire event. So I'm sitting next to a congressman. So as your brother is speaking, he goes, I've heard this speech before, and it's good, but he has another one on democracy that's better. So, but he was very complimentary of this speech. What grade do you give our minority leader Jeffries on the speech that he delivered? I'm sure maybe you've heard it before. I'm not sure maybe you haven't heard it before.
Well, I've heard elements of it. I mean, good speakers, one, you have to speak to your audience. But that particular, as we think about sort of the DNC, you're speaking to multiple audiences. Not only the people in the building, in the convention, but you have an audience of millions that you're also trying to reach. So it's a challenge, right? I mean, anyone, that's given this assignment, and he, of course, to speak to the challenges and the opportunities for the Democratic Party in Congress. I mean, that was sort of his assignment. It's a B plus. I thought it was very strong. He talked about substance as well as substantive issues, as well as has some nice style in there. I would give him I would bump it up to an A, but he's my older brother. You got to rein stuff in. You can't be too generous. So a very strong B plus, a very strong B plus.
So I'm sitting there, and Mark Levin, that's the congressman I was sitting next to. I thought it was a little slow. He started a little slow, but I knew he was going to bring it home. I thought this of a couple of the speakers, Al Sharpton also, who I knew would bring it home, Reverend Warnock. These are all really, really experienced, good public speakers. So I never worry about their delivery or if they're going to land the speech. And that's a style method as well, is to start your speech and to build and build and build, so you're not at the same pitch, from start to finish. So folks who are good speakers, learn how to pace themselves such that, you get that crescendo and you get folks on their feet at the end. So, he did that in such an expert way. And, he's a rapper. So your brother's always able to, throw in some stuff in there that, folks at home who are from Brooklyn or LA or, that relate to that hip hop culture can always relate to. So he's able to speak to a lot of different audiences, to your point, that you're not just speaking to the people in the room, and you're not just speaking to some random, 25 million people that are watching in real time, and then those other millions that will watch, on YouTube, etc. But you got to connect with a lot of people, different people. And I think, obviously he's been so effective because he is an African-American man. He skews younger, much younger, obviously, than Speaker Pelosi. So he's able to speak to a lot of different audiences. But I'm glad you brought up this point of joy, because there was an op-ed piece in the we've been talking about joy in the New York Times that said joy is not a policy. Right? Okay. No one's confused about that, right? We understand joy is not a policy, but joy is a motivator. And when you have 70 days before election, and in some states like Pennsylvania, voting will start in mid-September, you need people motivated. What are some of the similarities and differences that you see in this campaign where joy is being centered versus 2007, 2008, when Barack Obama was on the ballot?
Well, first, I think it's connected to this idea, the knock, if you will, that joy is not a policy, right? And no one's saying it is. But the idea of joy, as you said, as a motive force, should inform policy, right? Like I want people motivated by joy informing their particular political policies, as opposed to hate, right? As opposed to dislike, as opposed to anger in that sense, right? Because you wind up with different policies. Now that's critically important. But the same thing, we're talking about joy now, in 2007, 2008, it was about hope. The two are connected. They're two sides of the same coin, right? I mean, joy speaks to sort of the current moment, i.e. we're rallying around this notion of joy, like we're going to be joyful warriors, but we're motivated and driven by the idea of hope as opposed to hate. The big transition, if we remember in 2007 or moving into 2000, we're coming on the heels of 8 years or 7 years at the time of George Bush. We had Katrina. We were in the midst of it. We're in the depths of the economic housing collapse. Potentially facing a depression, moving into a recession. I mean, so there were painful times, and for Barack Obama to come at that time and talk about we got to have hope for what's on the horizon, that was really powerful. And also, we look back now and people say, it was particularly on the political right, Barack Obama divided the nation. Well, you may have been divided, but we see what he was doing was actually bringing people together. That coalition that we're hearing so much conversation about. Donald Trump comes in, uses the power of fear, the power of racism, the power of hate, and it serves him. I mean, he wins, right? I mean, he gets enough votes to electoral votes to get into office. And, in 2020, Biden was hinting at the hope, like let's return. But his was like, let's return to normalcy. What he was saying was like, let's return to Obama without saying Obama. Let's return to the questions of hope. But it was framed in a very narrow way. I think what Kamala Harris has done, she's taken that and injected this new energy in it, a new vitality that brings it full circle, saying, yeah, we have that hope for a new day, but we're not going back to where we came from. We're looking forward. And that's what Obama brought to the table as well.
You know what's so ironic, Professor Jeffries, is Trump and the MAGA supporters, his MAGA supporters, mocked Kamala Harris for her laughter, right? For her smile. They tried to make her laughter unserious, right? They tried to make her like she was a woman without substance, that she was, not intelligent, that she didn't have a high IQ because she was laughing. Because in our society, people who laugh, particularly if you're a female, there's certain stereotypes built around that. And I am so happy and proud that she took that which they meant for evil to use against her and turned it into an asset, into an advantage. So they wanted us to see her as a bumbling, stumbling idiot, because he's often calling her dumb. He does that. Donald Trump calls Kamala Harris dumb all the time. But she leaned, rather than let him define her, she leaned into that which is her personality, which is a happy, joyful person that can handle difficult situations, but can see, beyond the current crisis and can see, her way through to a better day, a better solution. So that's really quite remarkable. It was Donald Trump, too, who was pushing Biden off the ticket, who insisted that he was not capable of running and being the president. And then he gets what he asked for. And boy, did he really not want what he was asking for? So there's so many ironies in the way this whole transition has occurred. When we come forward, I want to talk about Robert Kennedy. What impact, if any, and his family and friends, Billy Baldwin, Alec Baldwin's brother, posted something on social media today, laying out in detail how long he's known this guy and the personal conversations they've had, and basically concludes by saying this is a man who always wanted to be president, didn't take advantage of opportunities that he had to run a legitimate campaign, and basically has sold his soul, sold himself this Hail Mary pass just to remain relevant and just to be in proximity to the seat of power. What is history going to say about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. when Donald Trump loses? When we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
They say the hardest part of getting something done is getting started. Well, we did that 30 years ago, when California first took on the tobacco industry. Now, smoking is down 60%, lung cancer 42%. A couple of our cities have already ended tobacco sales. A California without big tobacco isn't just possible, it's already happening. See our progress at undo.org.
With reported hate crimes rising in recent years, California has responded through outreach efforts across state government and in collaboration with community-based organizations for the launch of CA versus Hate. This non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline provides an anonymous reporting option for victims and witnesses of hate acts reported in 15 different languages through the online portal and in over 200 languages when calling the hotline. Report anonymously by calling 833-866-4283. Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or online at any time at cavshate.org. Hey LA, be an eco-friendly hero. Join LADWP's Power Savers program and use your smart thermostat to help ease strain on the electric grid during peak electric demand. You'll save electricity while you lower your bill. Plus, as a power saver, you can get up to $185 in prepaid gift cards. Don't have a smart thermostat? No problem. Shop and sign up at ladwp.com/Power Savers program. That's ladwp.com/Power Savers program. To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelenos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion. We aim to be as thermostat, transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
On Friday, Robert Kennedy Jr. dropped out of the race, and that's the race for president, and endorsed Donald Trump. And later that night, he joined Trump at a campaign rally in Glendale, Arizona. He talked about areas where he has agreement with Donald Trump, including having safe food, ending what he calls the chronic disease epidemic. Not sure what he's talking about there. Ending the Russia-Ukraine war, free speech, and rebuilding the middle class. The backlash to the endorsement has been swift and it has been brutal, including from Kennedy's family members, one of his dearest friends, Billy Baldwin, the actor who says he's known him for years, and laid out in great detail, Professor Hassan, opportunities that Kennedy had along the way to run for senator and other seats in the state of New York, where he's from, that would have platformed him to be president. And Baldwin talks about how Kennedy, at different points in times when offices became available to run for in New York, he wasn't ready. He had financial issues. He had personal issues. And this became the Hail Mary pass for him. And Billy was like, I am just disgusted. I disavow him. This notion that somehow he has alignment with Trump, who's been the biggest, oh my God, killers of our environment and plan to kill our environment. And that's what Kennedy has built his whole career around, climate change.
Yeah, it just really speaks to the unseriousness of his candidacy. And I think this is what on the one hand, but I think this is what the Kennedy family and so many others have been saying, including his friends like Billy Baldwin. I read that, his sort of post, if you will, and sort of laying out these things, is that his candidacy is not only unserious, but he himself is unserious. Right? He's an unserious person, who's trading on the family name and the family wealth, and it just wants to be, as you summed it up so wonderfully, he just wants to be in proximity to power. It's not an accident that he called both Kamala Harris, his team, and she refused to take the. He's like, hey, I ain't got nothing to say to you. I have nothing to offer you. And then is approaching Trump is like whoever is going to allow me to sit next to the throne, if you will, I'm willing to bend the knee. That is somebody who is dangerous, if you ask me, because they're unprincipled. They're just simply seeking power or proximity to power. Now, what impact will this have on the election? I don't see many anti-vaxxers flooding over into the Democratic Party. I mean, most of the people who were still with him, there was a degree of independents, who were flirting with the idea, but while Biden was at the top of the ticket, who were like, well, maybe there's some redeeming qualities in Kennedy. But I think they had already left. They had already moved on over. Those had already moved on over back into the Democratic column. So anybody who was still left, and he was only polling at 2 or 3%, 4% max, we'll slide over into the, into Donald Trump's side. But I don't think it's enough to make a difference, particularly in swing states. I think it's more of a statement on his lack of seriousness, lack of principle, than it is on anything else.
What do you make of Cornel West, Professor? He's a member of your fraternity, and fraternity, I mean college professor, academic scholar. He was out with the protesters, and let's be clear, Chicago was bracing for 30, 40,000 protesters. I think last count I saw, there were about 3,500. I was at an event on Tuesday night, and I kid you not, there might have been 12 to 15 protesters, a woman with a handheld megaphone, and at least 100, if not more, armed officers from every law enforcement agency you can think of. It was the biggest waste of government resources, people who were obviously working at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning on, I presume, overtime, getting paid to police 12 people. The woman who was in charge was repeating a script over and over again. They could not have hurt a fly. I didn't see Cornel West with that group. And there were some accounts on Monday when we were trying to get to the stadium that some protesters were trying to breach the perimeters that had been, set up. But there was also reports that Cornel West, also candidate for presidency, was out with the protesters. Like I said, not nearly what was expected, and hardly any outbursts inside of the United Center. But Dr. West.
Yeah, there's a big question mark when I hear Dr. West. Certainly, nothing can be taken away from the intellectual contributions that he has made for decades now. I mean, going back to the late 80s and the 90s, of course, race matters, and I mean that is beyond dispute. Nothing that he does now can erase that. But at a certain point, you wonder to what extent this campaign. Although I appreciate the visibility that is raising to particular issues, when you're in an election that is so close, and that the group that you're pulling from, that if they do not cast their ballots in this two-party race, this two-party system, that the effects and potential consequences of that can be disastrous. And it makes you really question and wonder not just the logic of it, but what is the end game? What is the end goal? There still, of course, is time. I mean, there's 70 some days left for him to sort of bow out. You've raised the issue. You're obviously not going to win. The only thing that you can do is play spoiler. And is that worth what it is that you are trying to achieve and to accomplish? So I'm a little concerned about it. I think there's a better way of going about it, although I appreciate the light that he's shining on these issues. I don't know if this is the best way to do it, and particularly the best way to go about getting those issues resolved and solved.
Well, we know how expensive it is. I mean, running for president in this climate, in this day and age, is a $2 billion with a B proposition. And one of the things that's being reported about Cornel West is that it is Republicans in some of these states that are behind the efforts to get him on the ballot, because that was the big issue that Robert Kennedy had. And he was very angry at Democrats, because he said Democrats were blocking his ability to get on the ballot in certain states. And now there are reports, that Republicans are behind Cornel West's efforts to get him on ballots, because people maybe don't realize this. You can't just say you're going to run for president and show up on the ballots, in all 50 states. It doesn't work that way. It's a whole complicated, expensive process. So I'm not sure how many states Cornel West has been successful in getting on the ballots, but we must question his running in the same way we're questioning Robert Kennedy's. What is the end game? Obviously, raising issues is we've seen that with other candidates, but in a race that could be as close as this race is, expected to be, even within the party, the Kamala Harris party, the super PACs that are supporting her, they are sounding the alarm that this is going to be a very, very tight race, that we should not rest our laurels on the momentum. We should not, be in a bubble thinking because we had the lit DNC, with the hippest, viral moments, that this means this is an easy race. This is still going to be a very difficult race, and it's going to take all hands on deck. So we are out of time, but I got to ask you this last question. My producer wants to know, do you have the same skills as your brother when it comes to hip hop, rap. You know, what you got? What you got, Professor?
Well, look, he was, as you know, there's different elements to hip hop. He had the rap down. I was more the break dancer. So I have to leave the microphone in his hand. And that's why I was a better stepper as well, too, with the cane. We were both Kappas. I was better with the cane. I leaned into that tradition a little bit more.
Okay, we might have seen you at the break dance competition at the Olympics. All right, we hear you.
I wasn't. That wasn't me in Australia, though. I wasn't representing Australia.
Well, we're about to pull up some video next time you come. We're about to show up with some receipts for you. But thank you so much, Dr. Jeffries. Always a pleasure to spend some time with you. Your insights are invaluable. Really appreciate you doing this difficult time, helping us make sense of this news. When we come forward, more of today's news, and then Ryan Alexander Holmes, and Professor Andre Brock talk about those creators at the DNC. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.